The house at the end of Sycamore Road. A real, scary, true story. They say every town has a story, a dark one. This is ours, and if you're listening to this, then maybe it's not over. In the fall of 1996, the Ellison family moved to a quiet rural town in northern Pennsylvania. They were a simple family, Daniel and Martha Ellison, with their teenage daughter Lily and 10-year-old son, Jacob. Daniel had just taken a teaching job at the local high school, and the family had found an old Victorian home at the very end of a road called Sycamore Lane. The house was massive, 2 stories with a wraparound porch and a backyard that backed into thick, whispering woods. It had been uninhabited for decades. The price, too good to be true. The neighbors didn't say much about it, but they all gave the same uneasy response when asked, "You bought that house?" The first few days were quiet, peaceful even. Then things began. It started with small things. Jacob said his toys were moving on their own. Martha assumed it was just the wind or maybe the boy's imagination. Then Lily complained about hearing tapping at her bedroom window every night. The house was 2 stories high. One night, Daniel woke to the sound of heavy footsteps upstairs. He quietly crept out of bed with a baseball bat and climbed the stairs, only to find nothing. But as he turned to go back down, he saw something in the hallway mirror, a figure, tall, thin, dressed in old-fashioned black clothing. But when he spun around, no one was there. Unable to shake the feeling, Martha went to the town library the next day to learn about the house's history. What she found chilled her blood. The house once belonged to the Cartwright family in the early 1900s. The father, Elias Cartwright, was a respected doctor until the townspeople discovered he was conducting experiments on patients in his own basement. They said he believed he could trap a soul, bind it to a body, and keep people alive forever. He was never convicted, but after a terrible fire in 1923, the Cartwright family vanished. The house had been empty ever since, except for the rumors. Locals claimed it was cursed, that at night, strange lights could be seen in the basement, that anyone who stayed too long didn't stay normal. That night, Martha told Daniel everything. He laughed it off. "Ghost stories don't scare me," he said. But later that week, Jacob disappeared for an hour. When they found him, he was standing in the basement, completely still, eyes wide open, staring at the furnace. "I heard him," Jacob whispered. "Who?" Martha asked, her voice trembling. "Elias. He said the house is waking up again." They decided to lock the basement door. The next morning, it was wide open. No one had touched the key. The family started hearing breathing through the walls at night. Jacob refused to sleep in his room, and Lily started drawing strange figures in her notebooks, dark silhouettes with red eyes. She said they were watching her from the corners. Martha contacted a local priest, Father Desmond, who agreed to come and bless the house. As he walked through each room, he grew more and more pale. He stopped at the basement door. "Whatever's in this house," he said, gripping his rosary tight. "It's old. Older than anything I've dealt with before." He warned them not to go down there, not until the full ritual could be prepared. That night, the screaming began. It started with Lily. She shrieked from her bedroom, and when Daniel burst in, he saw her pressed against the wall, eyes wild, pointing toward her closet. "She was in there," Lily screamed. "The lady in black. She had no eyes." At the same time, Jacob was pounding on his own bedroom door from the inside. It wouldn't open. Something was holding it shut. When Daniel finally broke it open, he found scratch marks on the inside. Jacob's fingernails were bleeding. Martha stood frozen at the top of the stairs, staring at the basement door. It was open again. Father Desmond returned the next morning. He had brought 2 others with him, men from a private order trained in dealing with spiritual entrapments. They set up candles, salt circles, and placed relics throughout the house. At dusk, the ritual began. As chants filled the house, the temperature dropped, doors slammed, the lights flickered, and then the basement door slowly creaked open on its own. A horrible growl echoed up the stairs. Not animal, not human. The priests pushed forward, down into the dark. The Ellisons waited at the top, listening to screams, louder, more guttural than anything they'd ever heard. Then, silence. Only one priest came back up, pale, shaking. "It's not gone," he whispered, "but it's sleeping, for now." The Ellisons didn't wait another night. They packed their car and left before dawn. But as they reached the edge of Sycamore Road, the car engine died. Daniel tried the ignition over and over again. Nothing. Lily screamed. In the rearview mirror, Martha saw figures, dozens of them, walking out of the woods, silent, pale, eyes hollow. They weren't people. The family scrambled from the car and ran to the nearest neighbor, a mile down the road. When they arrived, the neighbor, an old man named Hank, just nodded slowly. They don't let people leave, not unless they want you to. The Ellisons eventually moved out of state, far away, changed their name. But they were never the same. Jacob, now in his 30s, refuses to talk about what happened. Lily is in therapy, battling severe nightmares. Martha and Daniel divorced 3 years after the move, and then in 2023, Jacob received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single photograph of the house on Sycamore Road, and written in black marker across the front, "It's awake again." The Ellisons were just one family, but there were others. Still are. The house still stands, silent, rotting. And if you ever find yourself at the end of a road with no name, if you hear voices in the walls, or see red eyes watching you from the trees, don't look back, just run, because Elias Cartwright never left. And neither did the watchers. Jacob Ellison hadn't slept in 3 days. He sat alone in his apartment in Colorado, staring at the photo that had arrived without warning. The old house on Sycamore Road, still standing, still waiting. The words scrawled across the image, "It's awake again," echoed in his mind like a curse. He didn't want to go back, but he couldn't ignore it, especially not after the phone calls started. Every night, around 3:33 a.m., his landline would ring, and when he answered, there was no voice, just breathing, heavy, slow, wet, and underneath that, a whisper, "Come home, Jacob." Jacob contacted his sister, Lily. She hadn't spoken of the house in years. When he told her about the letter and the calls, there was silence on the other end. Then finally she said, "I've been dreaming of the basement." She had seen it too. The house was calling them both. Despite the trauma, they agreed to return, together, not because they wanted to, but because something inside them had to. Sycamore Road hadn't changed. The trees still hung low like twisted sentinels. The house was still there, rotting, silent, yet strangely untouched by time. Lily and Jacob stood before it like children again. As they approached the front steps, the door creaked open on its own. Inside, it was cold. The air was thick, damp like a cellar. Everything was covered in dust, but not undisturbed. Footprints, dozens of them, small, barefoot, leading toward the basement door. And that door, it was wide open. With nothing but flashlights and a recorder, they went down. The basement looked the same. Rusted furnace, broken tiles, cold stone walls. But something was different now. Carved into the far wall, new markings, fresh, scratched deep into the concrete. Symbols neither of them recognized. One resembled an eye, another a spiral, and beneath them, a crude sentence. He is not bound anymore. Suddenly, Jacob's recorder spiked. Static surged, and through the noise came a voice, guttural, layered. "I remember you." Then a second voice, higher pitched. "Jacob, come see what we've become." They turned to leave, but the stairs were gone. Where there had once been steps, now there was only a black wall, pulsing like it was alive. Then came the sounds, laughter, children's laughter, twisted, echoing in unnatural tones. Figures began emerging from the shadows, pale children, hollow eyes, thin limbs, smiling. One of them reached toward Jacob, whispering, "We never left. He made us stay. He made you leave." Another child approached Lily, placing a cold, transparent hand on her cheek. "Do you remember when you left us?" it whispered. "You were supposed to stay, just like them." Behind them, footsteps, slow, heavy, measured. Then that voice again. "You brought the keys back. I've been waiting, Jacob." The Watcher returned, but it wasn't just a shadow anymore. It had form, 7 feet tall, its skin black like tar, eyes, if you could call them that, red slits burning with hunger. It circled them slowly, like a predator, but it didn't attack. Instead, it spoke. This house was never haunted. It was awake, and it sleeps until it feeds. Then he leaned close to Lily's ear, and in a voice that sounded like dozens of whispers speaking as one, he said, "Your family broke the seal, but never closed it. You're not here to escape. You're here to finish it." The Watcher offered them a choice. "Stay," it said. "Stay and carry the voices. Let me rest again. Or leave, and I will follow you forever. Every shadow, every mirror, every breath."
Jacob stared into its empty eyes, and for a moment, he saw something. His father, Daniel, trapped in the dark behind it, mouth open in a silent scream. Then another face, Martha, her hands pressed against something invisible, eyes pleading. They had never escaped. Only their bodies had. The house had claimed their souls. Jacob dropped to his knees. "I'm tired," he whispered. Lily looked at him in horror. "You can't give in." But Jacob had already made up his mind. He stepped forward toward the Watcher. "I'll stay." The Watcher smiled. And just like that, the basement door reappeared behind Lily. The stairs returned. The Watcher's voice echoed one last time. "One stays, one goes. The seal remains, for now." Lily climbed the stairs, tears streaming down her face. As she reached the top, she turned back one last time. Jacob stood in the dark, surrounded by whispers, fading into shadow, and then the door slammed shut behind her. She ran. Out of the house, off Sycamore Road, back to the world. But she never spoke of it again. Not until now. It's 2025. The house at the end of Sycamore Road has just gone back on the market. The listing says, "Charming Victorian home, quiet neighborhood, great bones, previous owner recently passed, no known issues." But in the very last photo of the listing, if you zoom into the window just above the basement, you'll see a face, watching, waiting.